2. Hey guys, what is up? Kid here, Burn 1, Shadowverse Evolve channel. We made it to the final video. We're doing Omens Eternal set review with ending it on neutral. Joined as always with Pressure. You want to say hi?
Hello.
And Shepherd.
That's me.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of hop into here. Here's a rating key. If you some reason starting with neutrals, you're psychotic. I don't know what you're doing here. Go back to the other crafts. But here's the first card. Oh my god, how do you say this guy's name?
We just call him Gary.
Barry? All right, Barry.
No, Gary.
Gary.
No.
Jerry. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Omen of One. It's a 5-drop 5/5. Evo Swerver 1 has Rush at the start of your end phase. If there are 2 or less cards in your hand, deal 3 damage to each enemy leader. If there are 0 cards in your hand, deal 3 damage to each enemy follower on the field. The evolved form is a 6/6, and then it has the start of your end phase, refresh this follower. If there are 2 or less cards in your hand, deal 5 damage to each enemy leader. If there are 0 cards in your hand, deal 5 damage to each enemy follower on the field. I really like this card. This is such a good payoff card for like aggro decks even. I think this card's pretty solid overall.
I think that if aggro has a chance this format, it's this card. This card is really awesome in that sort of strategy because it's just neutral. It's very basic. It's just if you've played the game, you just get extra damage. Pretty big, stats too after Evo is 6/6. I just think my issue is I don't think aggro exists in this format, and I also think that it's just super inconsistent. But again, you can go 3-2 in top 8, so.
Well, you heard it here first. This card's awesome. This card is like an aggro mirror breaker. It just domes decks that you're trying to rush down in the face. It's got a decent body. The Evo side is insane. Like I don't know. I really like this card. This card makes me more bullish on a lot of decks than I would be otherwise. Like I think a lot of the sword aggro stuff, I would probably be less high on if they didn't have access to this effect. And it's just going to help you close out a lot of games.
Well, I think one of the issues I have with it though is it's like never getting the second effect unless you top deck it, which I feel like I think the first effect is fine and it's pretty strong, but the second effect is never happening unless you top deck it. And I don't think I feel like we shouldn't rate a card based on it being top decked, but I don't know.
Well, I just think it's just gravy.
Turn.
Like you're gonna be doing the first effect always. I mean, you will do the second effect enough. Like it's just free text.
But it only happens if you top deck it. It's not like it ever.
Or
happens.
if you play another card first too.
Yeah, but then that's turn 7 or 8.
Yeah, I mean it happens. I mean,
aggro.
This is the type of card that just adds the extra reach. The secondary effect isn't like the most important part. If you happen to get it off because you're playing this like hand dump deck of aggro, then like that's cool that you get the secondary effect. But a lot of times I just look at this card as extra reach.
Yeah, it domes them. I'm not saying that it's going to happen a lot. I'm just saying it domes them, and then there are going to be games where they go a little bit longer, and then you need some value, and it'll get there. I think on its face, without that text, still think this card's like insane. I think anytime you're able to have a well-statted body that's doing 3 to 5 damage to the enemy leader, like you're just going to have a really good time. This is also an instant include in my 15 goblin forest deck.
All right, I think we're good to rate this card then.
Yeah.
I like this card a lot, actually.
I just think it'll see play. I think it's average. I just don't think the strategy it's good in is really good at all next set.
I'm really bought into the extra reach, and then you have this 6/6 body on the board that they like. If for some reason the game doesn't end with that extra reach, then they still have to answer the 6/6 body. I think that's like pretty good for aggro decks in general. But I think Pressure is right in the sense that I don't think a lot of aggro decks will, be able to survive this coming meta.
And I just also feel like for aggro decks, I just feel like you just have to draw him at such a specific time and he's not tutorable that it becomes awkward. Like, You can't have him in the opening hand because then you're just at 3 cards. Because you can't play him till turn 5 at the minimum. And like I mentioned, his second effect only is live if you top deck him. I just feel like he does become sort of a brick at some points where it's like I'm turn 2 and I top deck him, and I only have 3 playable cards left in my hand, and hopefully those are 3 playable cards that are, like, gonna get me there, and I perfect curve, but it sorta adds, like, an extra layer of, RNG to or I should say that, but just inconsistency to an already inconsistent archetype, especially in the game and in the meta we're heading into. That's sort of just my opinion.
All right, moving on.
How do you say this one?
Gillenillies.
Gilnelise, Omen of Craving. This is a 4-cost follower, 3 power, 5 defense, and it has the keyword Drain. Pretty rare in Shadowverse Evolved to see Drain. And whenever you play a neutral card, you deal 1 damage to each enemy leader, and then has Fanfare. You can pay 3, so making this cost 7 in total, and you get to search for an Apostle of Craving and a Craving Splendor and put them into your EX area. And it also says Fanfare if all players, so in this case, if you and your opponent have 10 play points, you get to draw 3 cards. Do we want to take a look at Apostle of Craving and Craving Splendor now, or do we want to save that for later? Because that's pretty relevant to how this card gets evaluated.
Yeah, we can just do them both. I'll move these cards up. So we'll start with Apostle of Craving here. If Gillenillies Omen of Craving is on your field, this card costs 3 less to play from your EX area. You evo it for 1, and then Fanfare select the enemy, select another fall on the field and give it Rush. The evolved form is select another follower on the field, deal 3 damage to it, and give it +3 attack. Its base form is a 3-drop 2/2 into the evo, which is a 3/3. And then we'll go on here to Craving Splendor. It's a 3-drop spell with Quick. If Gillenillies Omen of Craving is on your field, this card costs 3 less to play from your EX area. Select an enemy fall on the field, deal it 4 damage, and give your leader +1 health. So those are the cards you can grab from Gillenillies Omen of Craving.
So this card comes down, and it's either just a 3/5 with Drain and this like neutral card text that's kind of whatever, or if you play it on 7, it's going to come down, deal 2 damage to the enemy leader because you play this and then you play the 2 neutrals for free. You're going to kill 1 thing, potentially 2 things. Then your Apostle gives this guy Rush, and then allegedly you get to swing in and heal some life. All for the high price of 7 mana. It is a really powerful effect. I think this is not a card that I think can be evaluated like immediately, if you know what I'm saying. Like I think this is going to be really interesting to see where the metagame is at, and if it's able to earn its slot in some of these control decks.
Yeah, I think Gillenillies is really interesting because it's the spell I think is extremely strong, and the follower, the Apostle, is neutral Dragon Warrior, which are 2 cards you'd maybe want to consider putting in your deck, and then you could put this card in your deck that is sort of just bundles them up in a nice package. I think like this is the worst. Like I think Gilnelise herself is the worst out of these 3 cards. But I think if you put all of them together, it's really strong. Mostly carried by the spell and kind of carried by the Apostle. I think my issue is, I think realistically, the full effect is going to come down on like turn 8 going first or turn 7 going second. And I don't think it does enough on that turn, especially if they don't have any guys that are tapped, because you can't, like, a lot of the value is dependent on being able to swing in with Gildenlease and get the health from the rush and hopefully +3 attack from the Dragon Warrior or the Apostle. But yeah, I do sort of want to, I don't know, bookmark or whatever this card and these cards, as this is sort of one of my predictions. Is I feel like you can make a 15 to 18 card, or I should say there exists like a 15 to 18 card like neutral package that just needs to find the other 22 cards in this game. And I think you could have a really good mid-range to control package that beats a wide variety of decks. I just don't know what class that is, and I think it mostly will involve Gilles and these other Craving cards. So I don't know. It is, like Shepard said, really hard card to rate. I think Gilles herself is really hard to rate. I think the other two are pretty easy.
Yeah, let's start with Gilles. I think I'm gonna go with the B just because I think the raw power is there. I don't it doesn't feel right to put this in C. I think it's just gonna be so meta dependent, and not just the meta game of what other people are playing, but like what decks have the slots for this, right? Because this is a
Yeah.
big ask. This is nine of 40 cards. So this is like you're dedicating 25% of your deck to these cards. That said, Craving Splendor, that's a very reasonable spell. 3 mana, quick, deal 4, gain 1. Not
Yeah.
the absolute worst thing to just play, right? Like you would never
Yeah.
play that like necessarily on its own, but you're not going to be embarrassed when you play that from your hand.
I feel like Craving Splendor is better than a lot of other. I think it's second only to like Serpent's Wrath and like 3 mana removal. Like I think
Yeah.
all the other 3 mana removal in the game right now is just way weaker than this. I don't know. The onslaught gamers.
Yeah, I think
Onslaught
I think it was Pressure who said it. He's like 100% right in the fact that this is the worst part of the package. But even this being the worst part of the package, this card is still relatively powerful. I think this is the type of card where if you're expecting a lot of control matchups, this card is kind of like breaks that mirror essentially into like a lot of control stuff because the draw 3 cards on fanfare will happen a lot more often if we're both playing control. That means we're going very late game most of the time where we're both going to get to 10 play points before one of us starts actually truly like putting enough pressure on the other opponent to like win the game. So this is like the card that if you anticipate a lot of control mirrors or whatever, I think this is like a really good piece to always consider. And I really like the other pieces. This on 7 and 8 is just a solid card overall. I kind of want to give this an A, but I also think it's kind of like the card is just going to like disappear over time as the meta just gets faster and faster.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a one and done card in the meta.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna go Shepard. I'm gonna give it a B. I think it's just, I think it's just the weakest part of this whole package. But
It definitely is.
I agree.
I guess.
What
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the main appealing part of it is that all the like a lot of the cards that ask you to play other cards, generally the other cards are like not as good. Like some of the like Medusa strategies last set, you had to play some of the questionable cards to get the full value. I just like that this card, you're already playing 2 decent cards, and then you get to put this card in your deck for free.
Yeah, you don't even have to play this as like a 3 of. It could be in there as like a 1 to 2 of, especially if you're planning to play like the whole control thing. So yeah. All right. I guess we'll just rate the other parts. I think we kind of said on this too. This is like a really powerful, probably, and honestly closer to S. Honestly,
I was gonna say I'm gonna rate this higher, not just because it's a better card, it's also just a signal that like, hey, this is the all-star here. I think this is way better than the Dragon Warrior too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is the type of card that just it's a neutral. Like it'll just always be in consideration almost forever because it's the best neutral like medium removal card that we have and will get for a very long time. So.
Oh, actually, yeah, and it has the healing on it. I think I'm with Brescia. I was already like kind of wanting it to grade it S, but yeah.
I think a lot of the decks that want 3 mana removal have access to a 3 mana removal spell. That's why I'm not going S on this one. Like this is more copies of it, but like I don't think you're running this over like in Runecraft. They're not going to run this over the ones that deal 5.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I was saying was that I think that this is better than a lot of the ones that other classes have access to. I think it's only second to Serpent's Wrath. Like I do think this is better that like it's better than Witch Bolt if like I think if you were saying, oh, I want to run 2 to 3 copies of Witch Bolt, I think this is better than the second and third copy of Witch Bolt because everyone usually plays like 1 for the moment stuff. Because Witch Bolt's not quick,
That's fair. I just think it's hard for me because 3 is such a difficult spot in Rune where it's like, yes, they're only on 1 Witch Bolt, but they're also on like the new modal spell that's a 3, and they're also on like 1 or 2 concentrations, right? So you can only put so many of these in your deck. I don't know why I'm saying that. Like, I think this card's not good. I think this card's very good. That's why I'm giving it an A.
Yeah. All right, and then Apostle of Craving.
What do you guys think?
Like, this is like between the other two. This is like a
Yeah, I think like it's like neutral removal that also it's just a solid card. I think I'm just gonna still rate it an A because like you can either buff something on your side if it lives and like for game or whatever from that.
I'm gonna rate it a B. I think it should always be considered for your craft, where your craft is playing decks that would want a Dragon Warrior.
Yeah, I'm between A and S because I feel like this like in many situations it's better than Dragon Warrior. Even like in like you wouldn't play this. Well, I don't know. Maybe you would play this in Dragon. Yeah, I think I will give it an S because I think there's actually builds where you would like that's the only thing stopping me from giving it an S. And I think if you there's a very like serious consideration to play this whole package in Dragon, and you just replace this with Dragon, like you replace Dragon War with this, and it's like basically no change. I don't think it's. I don't know if it's on.
My problem with that is that I think the stat difference is actually relevant. Like, I think Dragon Warrior being a 4/4 is big.
Really, because you had to like on the like when are you swinging into something that's 4 health on the turn, on the tempo turn?
With Dragon Warrior, I think starting this set, there's going to be more because like there's just a lot more 3/4s that are running around.
Well, but it's not going to be a 3/4 because like they play the 3/4 on 3, and then your turn 3 is like Evo and it's standing, right?
Yeah, but that's what I like.
The other
But with
way.
Dragon Warrior, you're killing two things, right? Because you're killing their earlier play too. You
Well,
should
yeah,
have
but
more
that's what you do with this thing as well.
Well, no, because if they have a 3/4, you can't kill both the 3/4 and their 2
But you
drops.
couldn't with Dragon Warrior anyway, is what I'm saying, because it's standing.
Oh yeah, sure. On
Yeah, I think
curve, yeah.
Yeah. Because after on curve, because then after on curve, I think it's better than Dragon Warrior because it has the second effect.
Because you have the second power,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is PDK question mark.
Well, PDK needs Dragon.
Yeah, it looks specific for
it's like
Dragon.
Dragon, you're right.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
All right.
Next card.
Let's get to this card, and this is the card that's gonna make me quit Shadowverse. So
Is this me? Am I reading this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Lial, Archer Throne. While this card is on your field, your leader cannot take damage from effects. Quick activate, engage this card, deal 2 damage to each enemy leader. I'm gonna be hyperbolic. I think this is the best card in the set. I think this is so underrated. It's insane. I think everything I said about Ancient Protector last video in terms of matchups is that times like 10. I think this just auto wins a lot of matchups, and I'm gonna be interested to see if people sort of pick up on how good this card is because I don't think a lot of people in JP played it, and I feel like one of the strengths we have as playing after JP meta is that we're able to like learn from sort of like the mistakes of the JP meta and see, wow, Egg is really crazy this meta. Maybe I should play this card that lets that turns Egg off and lets they egg me, or make them Humpty on 3 basically.
I'm in the same boat as you. Like when I first read this card, I was like, wait a minute, what? This card's really good. Why didn't we see this in any decks?
Wait.
Like I was very confused because like the fact that the activated effect is a quick means that you don't have to engage this on your turn. You can respond to things on your opponent's turn, and at the end of their turn, use it or whatever, right? And then it forces your egg opponent to like egg Evo to remove this, but you don't take the 3 damage because this is on the board when it happens, right? Or how does that work exactly?
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Yeah, if not, you just got to buff this 1 health, and there's probably some way to do that. But or at least it makes it so like the only answer they have is like they have to egg Evo or like use like 3 counters to remove this, or pinion prince Evo to attack this when it's standing. But if you have like any response to the pinion prince, that you could remove their pinion prince or whatever. It just seems like it's a really, really powerful card for like what the meta is going to be like.
Yeah, I think this card just enables a lot of really degenerate ways to play the game where your game plan can become like this is a 1-card game plan and a sideboard answer, right? Like it's both a card that prevents your opponent from advancing their game plan in the case of like Egg or Silver Bolt or other things, and then also is a one card game plan in the sense that it's like, all right, well, I have this body and I'm never going to swing with it, and it's just going to chip at you every turn. I think this card's really, really good. It's going to come down to what's the engine around it, right? I know I've said this about quite a few cards, but it's like when cards are introduced that don't have like a pre-built deck for them in this game, it can be kind of hard to figure that out. I don't think JP was able to figure that out, and so the big question is if we're going to be able to figure that out. By we, I mean me at 1 a.m. tonight, as I'm going to be like building 400 decks with this card.
I'm going to tell you right now, just so I can break your brain a little bit. This is Angel Trait, which means the 1-drop spell is back on the table, boy.
Card in my deck now that this insane broken card.
Hell yeah!
I will say I think this is another one of the key pieces in this sort of hypothetical like neutral package I was talking about with Gilles. This plus all the Gilles cards plus the generic removal, I think adds up to a really good half of a deck that needs to find the color and the people it wants to associate with.
I'll just put Dragon Oracle in there, and you know.
Yeah, it could be. But then Dragon has, but then the problem is Dragon has like way too many like broken cards, you know.
Suddenly that deck doesn't look so good next to Forte.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna give this card an A. I don't think it's meta warping or breaking. Otherwise, we would have seen more from it. But I do think it's very powerful.
I feel like it's meta warping because I really think it's gonna reevaluate how popular and how good Egg is.
Interesting.
That's sort of my reasoning as to the S, because my sort of preemptive thing is I think Egg is like the best deck. And this is like the counter to the best deck, you know, theoretically, you know, the counter to the best deck, and it can be played in every other deck, and it's like kind of unexplored. I think this is the singular card that has potential to like veer us off into a different direction for this meta than JP had, if that makes sense.
That's fair, and I agree with that. I think just the main difference between you and me is like I don't value the silver bullet effect as much, just because archetypes, even like the best archetype,
true.
is not reaching what it gets in Japan right now, where it's like Egg could be the best deck by a mile, but the tournaments aren't going to be 50% Egg.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna bring this to a 5-round tournament and hit Egg one time pre-cut.
Well, then the sixth thing about this is that it's like an overstated body, not overstated, but like we've never really seen like a really average sized body that has like a really good effect. So it's like it's okay into other decks.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I think this card is not a silver bullet. This card is a card that you kind of build a little engine in your deck around. It doesn't have to be your whole deck, but you have a little engine where this is like a piece of your game plan.
So the reason I'm rating this S here is because I think this is like the perfect time where this card first text matters, and the second text is always going to be good anyway. And it's like a decently sized body, like we've been saying. But the fact that this is like the one meta where like it hits a Havencraft Egg, it hits Silverbolt, and those are like two popular strategies that are still going to be played in this meta. Like the fact that it hits those two main like decks that are running around basically is really, really good. I think outside of like this specific meta, I think it's closer to A, like Shepard said. But otherwise, I think right now this card is like one of the best cards to be like at least brewing with or like considering in any deck.
Does this bring? Oh wait, no, because that's not how it works. Dang it! I was gonna give our girl Valneric some plus, but that's not how it works. Dang, she still dies to snipe. Oh.
All right, moving on here to this. Is it my turn? I think. Fina, Dynamite, Daredevil. It's a 2-drop 3/2 fanfare. Choose one of the following. First effect, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal a follower that originally cost 1 play point from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Then select an enemy, or the second effect is select an enemy follower on the field that originally costs 1 play point and destroy it. I think this is like one of the best 2-drops. Like it's probably going to see a lot of play. Going what playing this going second or sorry first or whatever. You play this on 2, you always have an answer for their 1-drop that they end up playing because this will always remove it. It's aggressively statted. I really like this card.
Yeah, this card's insane. This again, we don't really want to do future vision too much, but I think this is definitely one of 2 cards in the set that definitely like transcends the set and is like always viable. This is just one of the best neutral 2-drops in the game for any mid-range strategy. Aggro to mid-range strategy, I should say.
Yeah, this card's awesome. I think it's hard to say that like, there's a part of me that in some ways I go, this is the best card in the set, only in the sense that its raw power is like really eternal. Not just in the sense that we know it gets played in the future, but it's just every part of it is clean. It's well statted. It's never going to be a mistake to think about this card when it comes to your deck. And I think it also design wise, I know we don't like to get into this too much. Just get on my dinosaur. I really like the way that they took the old Fina and then some of the later Finas and kind of combined them into making this card, right? Where it's like, the original one just like dealt 1 damage, and then, some of the other Finas, they go and get you a 2-cost follower from your deck, and this is like, all right, we're just going to do all of the above. And it's great. This card also goes in the 15 Goblin Forest deck, by the way.
Yeah. I think I'm just rating this an S. This card just like too powerful all around for what it is for a 2-drop. So
yep, it's literally minimum a 2 for 1.
Yep. All right, moving on here.
All right, Rosa, Mech-Wing Maiden. It's a 2-cost follower with 1 attack and 3 defense. It evolves for 1. On the front side, it has ward, and then when it evolves, it keeps ward and you draw a card, and it becomes a 2/4. It has the all-important angel tag for your winged inversions.
Whoa!
Busted.
Her
W
brother
for
did not
winged
make
inversion.
an appearance. Her brother did not make an appearance this set, I see.
Another set, another random neutral, do some minor stuff, draw a card.
Going second, this is kind of all right. But why would you ever want to go second in this game?
Yeah.
I guess why would you want to go second?
There's so many like okay statted 2-drop evos that draw a card. At this point, you could like just get your pick of the litter, whatever you want to play.
But it's an angel card. You can go -2, and then what is the 1-drop even do? It kill something?
Yeah, just kill anything.
Well, you discard an angel to kill something. You discard a fallen angel to draw a card and gain 3.
Yeah,
and it's not quick.
Yeah, unfortunately. I almost this card's F. Yeah, I was like, maybe there's a world I'd make this a D, but
the problem is that this just isn't the kind of game Shadowverse is.
Yeah.
Like I said this before, it's like I would love to live in a world where these 2-drop evos are good, but they're just not enough. They just don't do enough. They don't have enough stats. They're not on game plan. They cost a slot in the Evo deck, which is really important. There's just too much going on. I mean, compared to Fina, this is just like this card just looks awful.
Yeah, it's another card that's like if this was a 3-mana 2/4 ward draw card, this would be almost S. Like in my opinion, I think it's so the Evo space in this game is so important that you can't waste it on unimpactful cards like this. But if this was a 3-mana 2/4 ward draw card, I think this would be an S.
Yeah, I mean, look at this compared to Fina, where Fina requires a top check, requires a 1-drop, right? But what makes Fina so good is that there's no Evo cost. You just get the effect for 2 mana and you get it right then and there, even before you get to Fina's second bullet point.
Yep. All right, moving on here.
Enlightenment. 1-mana spell. Select a follower on your field and give it +1/+1. If you selected Jerry, give it +3/+3. Assail, and the following effect instead. This follower cannot take damage this turn. If you top deck Jerry and then you top deck this, it's pretty sick. But other than that, it's awful. I think this card is garbage. I don't know.
I think it's pretty bad in general. Like, I mean, maybe it could see play, but every time I think about this card, I'm like, the only time this card is good is when you have Jerry and you target Jerry. but it works so weird with like Cherry's effects because it does want you to get low hand size, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this card, but I don't know. There's probably a world where I end up losing some tournament because someone played this card and I eat 9 or whatever.
Well, you're gonna lose the tournament because they like high rolled into Jerry and top decked it at like the perfect time. That's why you lose. You're not gonna lose this card.
The thing with this card is that it's got the keyword in the wrong place. I'm like, give +1/+. Like every other one of these cards that gets at all playable is like you get more value from the first part, right? Like you draw a card or you give it a keyword or anything like this. This only gets a sale if it's Jerry. I think that's the death knell. I think its power level could be substantial if it was just +1/+1 a sale, but they didn't want to give us a fun card.
Well, that's the whole point of like this archetype is you're just supposed to fucking spin the roulette and whoever the luckiest player is wins.
This archetype? You mean this game?
Right? Hey, he's spitting.
All right, next card. Cat Cannoneer. It's a 3-drop 3/3. Evolves for 1. The evo size is 4/4. On evolve, summon an ancient artifact token. Ancient artifact token is this 1-drop 3/1 that has rush.
Definitely not the angel from Evangelion on that token. Definitely not.
Definitely not. 100%.
I think this card's insane. I think this card's really, 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 really good. What do you guys think? Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. I think it's all right. It's almost like a Dragon Warrior, except the only thing you can target is with if it's engaged. But yeah,
I think of it as like more like neutral floral.
Oh yeah, you can see it that way too. And then we can get our token lord, and we get +2/+2 on this.
I just think none of the decks, like all of the decks that want to play a card like this, already have their card like this. So
yeah,
I just think it has no home. But I think it's so good. Like if I just think this card's so good with no home because all the decks that want to play this card, like I don't know, is it like I don't know, maybe this is better. Maybe this is good in Dragon. I'm trying to think of the decks and the classes that would want a card like this that don't. I don't know.
I think you're right. This is like a pretty solid card that just has no home. Yeah.
Yeah, I am pretty low on this card compared to you guys, I think.
I mean,
not the greatest. I think it's not the worst card. I think a 4/4 and a 3/1 for 4 is fine. I just think it's one of those effects that's not strong enough to justify the Evo space. I think it's pretty fragile, and I think it's a little late, Like, this is a card that I think is just not on time. Okay, you did give it a D, all right. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was hyping the card up, but I didn't think it was like. I think at most it's a C if I really want to push it. But I think it's mostly a D because like one, it has no home. Like I think the effect and everything's all right, and it being kind of like a neutral craft floral fencer essentially is kind of cool. It's just I know it's very like. You have to have a game plan to want to have this card in your deck. It's not something you would immediately consider, I feel like.
Yeah, and I know we talked about for this review focusing on like evaluating cards for this meta, and I just like look around at what I see possible right now, and I just don't see any of these decks wanting this card. I'll go with a D just because I think that I want to establish that the Fs are worse than this card, but I would be very shocked, very, very shocked if my opponent played this against me. About the biggest upside of this card is that you put the ancient artifact on top of your token pile, so your opponent doesn't know what you're on. You have a good
get banned or something. Did that happen to Yu-Gi-Oh? I guess I'll give this a C. Thinking about it more, I just it answers a lot of stuff in the meta pretty cleanly, but it is just a matter of where. Like
what
like I don't think.
Token?
What do you say?
What are we gonna rate the token? 1 mana 3/1 rush.
Wow.
Busted. Rush out of 10. All right. Next card here.
Deal Demolitionist. This is a 2-cost follower, 2/3. So we got fighter stats, and it has fanfare. Banish a card in your EX area. Select an enemy leader or enemy follower on the field and deal it 2 damage.
Oh, puppet support.
This
Busted.
card is really funny because yeah, it is puppet support, but it's really funny that they printed the bigger version of this at 4 cost at 4 play points in Forest, but then they put the smaller version in neutral.
Well, the 4-drop doesn't hit face.
Oh, sorry. You're right. You're right.
Oh man, could you
That's actually
imagine the
really
force?
important. That is actually really important. I just thought that was kind of awkward that it wasn't a cycle. Well, this is puppet support, but this set doesn't have a lot of puppets. So if the question is how reliably
Well, it's not
can
just
you
puppets; it's any EX
get,
cards.
I was going to say, how reliably are different decks going to get cards in the EX area? And how many of those decks want this effect? And the answer is not that many, right? I mean, you're not going to put this in egg, right?
No,
Yeah. Like,
this is the 12th force card. It's just not good.
yeah, this is like the card that you. This is also like a few turns after you've played your Flower Princess or Fairy Circle or whatever you play this, but you're pretty much never getting this on too.
Fairy Circle.
Fairy Circle 1, this on 2.
Well, in set 5, people aren't playing Fairy Circle. So sorry,
Yeah,
Spring Green
yeah.
Protection. That's what I meant. Spring Green Protection and Flower Princess are like the main ways that people are putting stuff in the UX area right now.
I was really thinking about this card. I think it's funny that they like I almost feel like this card is gonna be played because it's a better version of that awful Umusume card that was being played at Discard Dragon. And it's like this is like a better version of it. And I do feel like fighter that deals 2 to face if you Fairy Circle on turn 1 is like not that bad, but it's also aggro forest is not a thing. So I don't know. I'm gonna give it an F just because it's like it's only a forest card. I'm giving it an F and a G. No, just an F.
I'm gonna give it a D. I think it's slightly better, but I don't think it's gonna be played.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to our last card here.
Very easy word to pronounce.
Yeah.
Glycer. Select an enemy field follower on the field and deal it 2 damage. If Gilles is on your field, banish the selected enemy follower instead. I was testing with this card in sort of that, neutral package I've been talking about. I like this card because it's like 4th, 5th, and 6th. Nah, you would never play this at 3, but it's like 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of Angelic Snipe, and that's already a really good card in this meta. And then if you, play your one of your boss monsters, you just banish something for 1 mana, like that's really strong.
So I'm glad to hear that you tested this card, because for me the main hesitant, like, I think this card's like just on the face of it really powerful, and I think it's actually way better than the one that banishes a 2 defense follower, just because like
Yeah.
the main mode of this card of Angelic Snipe at slow speed is like fine. But it's also fine, but then the upside is just so high. The only concern I have is um Gilnelise is only coming down later generally.
Yeah.
And you're gonna feel pretty bad if you play them out early. So I was just curious because like that's almost 9 mana if you do the full combo and play this. Otherwise, she has to live. Like, when you played these matches, did you ever run her out on 5 to just then immediately play this card to banish something, or like how often was that actually coming up?
Well, yeah, so because that's sort of like why I like this card is because putting this in your deck makes it so that Gilnelise is not just locked at 7+. Because without it, it's like if you play it on 4, it sucks. But now with this, it's like, hey, the value I'm getting for this turn 5, like play this down, banish something. I have a 3/5, and I dealt 1 damage to my opponent's, leader. I think is like really strong that it gives you that option. And like you were saying, the bottom, side of it is Angelic Scythe that's not quick,
Yeah,
which doesn't
that's
really matter if you just go first every time, which you should be going first.
that's just the question, because like when you do that mode, obviously this card becomes really really good. It's just that then you have like running out Gilnelise early enables this card to be really good, but then you just have a 3/5 drain, right? And I guess the neutral deal 1 text is kind of relevant, but you're pretty much not getting any of the value that you put her in your deck for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a really awkward card in sort of like a meta sense because it's like not the meta, but in that like you're putting this card in so that it makes Gilles more flexible, but then like if you do the like flexible play with Gilles, you're defeating the purpose of the whole reason you put her in the deck. So it's like it's a weird loop, and
I
I
guess
don't
I guess it
answer
just is just an option, right? Like you play it as a
Yeah.
2-drop early, and then later it gets you out of scenarios, which I do put some value on. Like this can get you out of a tricky scenario that you're not happy about, but you need to be able to navigate. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a B. I think.
And I
I think
literally just played it at 1. So like if you play multiple copies, like more, different. Like if you played on 6, you got 2 copies, you might win that game.
I think the better deal 2 damage is too, like the better this card is. Like if there's a lot of goblins running around, this card gets a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this card. It's just a card like you guys kind of hinted on. If you're playing Gilles, you gotta consider playing this card at some point. I think I personally though, like if I'm gonna add extra snipes to my deck, I feel like I would rather play that repose card first, or consider that card before this card. I think I like this card as like a random 1, maybe 2 of in a deck if you're playing Gilles. Then I think it's like sometimes it just out something for very cheap and you get to create a board with big threats they have to immediately deal with, and like they lost their big 8-drop for 1 play point, which is like backbreaking in a way. I think I'll rate this a B also. I was kind of on the fence of like maybe rating this a C, but I very much value I get to pay 1 play point to destroy a big body while also building like a decently sized board in the later games with Gilles, because when I did play the Angel Abyss control, a lot of people would like play a big threat and they would get really sad when their threat died with 1 play point. And I liked looking at my opponent getting sad. So
Wait, I got it, guys. I got it. You play the Gilneys package in your Alana deck with Servant of Repose.
Yeah. Wait, which repose card were you talking about? Were you talking about
and the
Sabers,
1
or were you
drop,
talking
the,
about
the one
the
that sorry, the one that
okay,
banned.
okay,
If that's
yeah.
that was a repose card, right? I think.
Yeah, that was. It was
Yeah.
the Sabers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would if I'm looking at extra snipes in the deck, I think I would look at those first before this, obviously. But
that's
like,
only for control.
Yeah. Gilneys. If you have Gilneys in your deck, though, you should always look at this card and be like, "Huh, is this card useful in my deck or not?" So,
I actually think I want to test this out. I want to test out like it's probably bad, but I do want to test out the Alana's Prayer Gilneys build. That sounds really interesting.
That sounds like really fun, yeah.
Because these cards are all pretty on rate. Gilneys gains life, Craving Splendor gains life, and then you just get to play like this card early, which is kind of on game plan. Also, you're putting these bodies out. So like now when you do your combo turn, both the Apostle and Gilneys will get pumped.
Yeah. Sounds pretty cool.
I mean, it's probably bad, but like that sounds fun at least.
Yeah. I think there's one like deck that this card has a spot in that's like pretty secure, kind of. But I'm not gonna give it away.
Right, you'll have to subscribe to our Patreon for that one. Check out.
Yeah, my Patreon. I'll drop my PayPal.
Was it the Saber Fan 04 Patreon?
Yeah.
Look it up. That's where all the secret tech is, guys.
You played in Gecko Moria.
You played in Gecko Moria. Oh my god.
Let's say you're on the full package, you're only on one of this card?
Yeah, the deck that I'm sure we'll practice after this or whatever.
All right. I'm just saying because I feel like if you ever do it twice, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you ever do it twice, but it is like I don't know. I think I actually ended up cutting this card to be TBH. But I think it's
all right. This is more like set hype instead of craft hype, since it's not a craft. How do you guys feel about this set overall? Like, are you happy with the cards that we got? Like, do you think this is gonna really push Shadowverse into a completely different meta?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely think the meta will be fairly different because I think it's just going to be like Egg exists, and then every deck is either new or going to change in a very like vast way. Like I think Force is going to still be relevant, but I think it's going to be fairly different. I kind of talked about this, before we clicked record, but I was telling Kit like it is just sort of a shame that we're not going to have any big tournaments for this meta, because I think this is a very fun and diverse meta, unlike what the Grand Showdown meta will be. But yeah, I'm excited to try stuff, but it sort of feels futile because this is just one of those metas where you win the one, 12-man local to get your round one bye, and then you just never play the game for like 3 months.
Yeah, I like Pressure was saying, we talked about it a bit. I would have really like enjoyed seeing like a really like huge like regional tournament in this meta. I think it would have been fun to see singles and like all the different deck builds, because I do think there's some stuff in here that wasn't like fully explored in JP, kind of like that one angel card we were talking about. Also, still wait, actually during this set, Uma's coming back at full power, right? I think during
Yeah,
the set. Yeah.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if that deck can keep up with the like extra changes and stuff. I don't think Uma had a big impact during this meta in JP, but
it
did
got
it?
top 4 at the big Grand Prix, yeah.
Okay.
Which scares me. Because it's like, it's like, wow, look at all these fun cards.
Yeah, I really would have liked to see a full like huge tournament with like these cards and this meta. I think we would have seen a lot of cool things happening and a lot of interesting builds, but alas, we have no huge event for this set.
I would say I'm a little bit less excited for this set than I was for set 4. Just because I feel like set 4 brought a lot of consistency to a couple of the top strategies that made it like more exciting, because I felt like before set 4, if you were not in one of like 3 specific decks like Dragon or Uma, you were kind of playing like a 32 card deck, like 30 something like card deck, and then the other like 5 to 9 cards were just whatever, right? It was just kind of like I have to scrape together a cohesive 40. And then set 4 I thought really elevated it, and now this is like set 5, kind of the floor has been raised and they're exploring in a lot of directions that kind of reflect where the game is going, but I don't think it's actually gone in any of those directions in a way that's like interesting to me yet. Like I'd want to see where a lot of the ideas that start here go, but nothing's like fledged out enough for me to be really excited about it, with like the 2 exceptions being I want to play some Lashina, I want to play this stupid Alana Haven deck, this is going to be like a lot of me trying to find the fun by playing stupid decks, more or less. So I'm going to give it like a B.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of the fun is going to come out for me too, is that since there is no major events, I'm going to like probably play with a lot more jank stuff than I normally play with. So
yeah, I'm actually kind of happy with the lack of events, because like to me the idea of like playing some of the top decks in this format is not going to be as exciting,
Yeah,
especially
that
because I
might be
think
true, yeah.
I think Egg and I think Sword's going to be fun, but I don't think I'm going to look forward to playing like 100 Sword games on either side. And I think this meta is going to be, at least in America, at the tournament scene, a lot of like if there was a big tournament, Sword and Egg would just be a lot of it. Not like there's a lot of diversity in this game, but you know what I mean. I just like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not that
yeah.
interested in those decks.
yeah.
Well, time to put together terrible discard Abyss with Lyrial, so that beats both decks. Does it even beat Egg? I don't know. I just looked, and you guys want to guess what the biggest discrepancy of ratings a card had between just any of us?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to
what
guess?
is it? I can't even
Okay.
think.
Apostle of Silence. I gave it an F. Kit gave it a B, and Shepard gave it a C. That's the big. I just went through all of them. That's the biggest
Discrepancy
difference.
where we all
Yeah.
didn't agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys sort of
We're
agree,
kind
or
of yeah.
just the biggest gap between like the average of whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm still surprised. I feel like F is pretty harsh on this card, just because
maybe it is. Yeah. I don't
I think if a
know.
card has like playable text, it's kind of always good. Like it's hard to have a card that's playable at F. To me, the F cards are ones that like are just so atrocious that they will. There's like almost no situation that will ever realistically come up. Like the fairy card that like you return 2 things to your
Yeah.
EX zone, where it's like, okay, in theory, yes, there is a situation where that comes up, but in general, like in the game of Shadowverse, that's just a horrible effect. Apostle of Silence is a 5/5 that makes your opponent you know um
No, it does not make your opponent.
I almost said makes your opponent discard a card. It makes your
No.
opponent have to take some damage sometimes. No, it kills something like a lot of the time. I think that's like it's a pretty high floor.
All right, I think that is it, right, guys? So, unless pressure, you want to lock in a letter?
For the sorry for the
yeah, no problem. Yeah. All right. Well, here are our handles: Twitter, X, whatever. Give us all a follow on there so you can hear us cry and post about how our 40 card piles don't work. Elena Glenese is a garbage deck, etc. Or whatever, Glenese or whatever.
If you're an NL Central fan of any of the other 4 teams, you might enjoy my Twitter. But I think if you don't care about baseball, then
the most important thing you guys can do is if this video gets over 1 million views, we will release the full 15 Goblin Forestcraft deck that we firmly believe is the best for the meta.
Well, Shinko Windy's
so go ahead. We got to get 1 million views. So go ahead, get every single Shadowverse player. That'll be the first 100. And then keep going from there.
Yeah, then send this around to your family, your grandma, your uncle, your great grandma, all your dead relatives, everyone.
I'd also like to apologize to the Italian Shadowverse community for my caricatures earlier in the set.
Blink twice if you're held hostage right now. All right, guys.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks for having us on, kid. I appreciate it.
Kid.
No, yeah, thank you both for coming. I don't like doing these alone, so I always like have people. Especially, I feel like we all at some point had different varying opinions on cards, which is fun. I like arguing with people about like, will this card that we haven't really tested a ton yet be viable or not? So it's been a lot of fun. I'm really happy that you guys came in. I guess with that being said, everyone, thank you for watching and all that. Hope you have fun with this new meta and set. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We should be releasing a bunch of generic deck profiles for every craft after this video drops in the next few days. So make sure to watch out for that. Other than that, we'll see you guys later. Goodbye, everyone.
Arrivederci.